Hi, boys and girls. We're going to read some more of our book, Ramona the Pest. Just getting into kindergarten, remember? Children, Miss Benny's voice was sharp. We must rest so that we will not be tired when our mothers come to take us home. Is your mother coming to take you home? Howie asked Miss Benny. Ramona had been wondering the same thing. Do you think teachers' moms come and get them? I don't think so. That's enough, Howie, Miss Benny spoke with the way mothers sometimes speak just before dinner time. In a moment, she was back to her soft, sleepy voice. I like the way Susan is resting so quietly, she said. Susan, you may be the wake-up fairy and tap the boys and girls with this wand to wake them up. The magic wand turned out to be nothing but an everyday yardstick. Ramona lay quietly, but her efforts were of no use. Susan, with her curls bouncing about her shoulders, tapped Ramona last. It's not fair, Ramona thought. She was not the worst rester in the class. Howie was much worse. Here's that picture I showed you before where she's trying to rest so still. The rest of the morning went quickly. The class was allowed to explore the paints and the toys, and those who wanted to were allowed to draw with their own crayons. They did not, however, learn to read and write, but Ramona cheered up when Miss Benny explained that anyone who had anything to share with the class could bring it to school the next day for show and tell. Ramona was glad when the bell finally rang and she saw her mother waiting for her outside the fence. Mrs. Kemp and Willa Jean were waiting for Howie too, and the five started home together. Right away, Howie said, Ramona got benched, and she's the worst rester in the class. After all that had happened that morning, Ramona found this too much. Why don't you shut up? She yelled at Howie just before she hit him. Mrs. Quimby she took Ramona's by the hand and dragged her away from Howie. Now, Ramona, she said, with her voice was firm, this is no way to behave on your first day of school. Poor little girl, said Mrs. Kemp. She's worn out. Nothing infuriated Ramona more than having a grown-up say, as if she could not hear, that she was worn out. I'm not worn out, she shrieked. She got plenty of rest while she was benched, said Howie. Now, Howie, you stay out of this, said Mrs. Kemp. Then, to change the subject, she asked her son, how do you like kindergarten? Oh, I guess it's all right, said Howie without any enthusiasm. They don't have dirt to dig in or tricycles to ride. And what about you, Ramona? Asked Mrs. Quimby. Did you like kindergarten? Ramona considered. Kindergarten had not turned out as she had expected. Still, even though she had not been given a present and Miss Benny did not love her, which Miss Benny does, she had liked being with boys and girls her own age. She liked singing the song about the Donzer and having her own little cupboard. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, she answered honestly, but maybe it will be better when we have show and tell. I'm going to go into chapter 2, and here's Ramona, and you can tell what she brought for show and tell. I love the hair on that doll. I think it's a little messy. Okay, it's called Show and Tell. Ramona looked forward to many things. Her first tooth, riding a bicycle instead of a tricycle, wearing lipstick like her mother, but most of all, she looked forward to show and tell. For years, Ramona had watched her sister Beezus leave for school with a doll, a book, or a pretty leaf to share with her class. She had watched Beezus's friend Henry Huggins carry mysterious lumpy packages past her house on his way to school. She had listened to Beezus talk about the interesting things her class brought to school: turtles, ballpoint pens that wrote in 3 different colors, a live clam, and a jar of sand and seawater. Now at last the time had come for Ramona to show and tell. What are you going to take to show your class?" she asked Beezus, hoping for an idea for herself. "Oh, nothing," said Beezus, and went on to explain. "Along about the 3rd grade, you begin to outgrow show and tell. By the 5th grade, it's all right to take something really unusual like somebody's pickled appendix or something to do with social studies. An old piece of fur when you study fur traders would be all right. Or if something really exciting happened, like your house burning down, it would be all right to tell about that. But in the 5th grade, you don't take an old doll or a toy fire engine to school, and you don't call it show and tell by then. You just let the teacher show you know you have something interesting." Ramona was not discouraged. She was used to Beezus's growing out of things as she grew into them. She rummaged around in her toy box and finally dragged out her favorite doll, the doll with the hair that could really be washed. "I'm going to take Chevrolet," she told Beezus. "Nobody names a doll Chevrolet," said Beezus, whose doll had names like Sandra or Patty. "I do," Ramona answered. "I think Chevrolet is the most beautiful name in the world." "Well, that's a horrid-looking doll," said Beezus. "Her hair is green. Besides, you don't play with her." "I wash her hair," Ramona said loyally, and the only reason what's left of her hair is sort of green is that I tried to blue it with Howie's grandmother's hair dye. Her hair is blue at the beauty shop. Mama said putting bluing on yellow hair turned it green. And that makes sense, huh? What we know about colors. Anyway, I think it's pretty. When the time finally came to start to school, Ramona was disappointed once more to see Mrs. Kemp approaching with Howie and little Willa Jean in the stroller. "Mama, come on," begged Ramona, dragging at her mother's hand. But her mother waited until the Kemps had caught up. Willa Jean was even sloppier this morning. There were crumbs on the front of her sweater, and she was drinking apple juice out of a nursing bottle. Willa Jean dropped the bottle when she saw Chevrolet and sat there with apple juice dribbling down her chin while she stared at Ramona's doll. "Ramona is taking her doll to school for show and tell," said Mrs. Quimby. Howie looked worried. "I don't have anything for show and tell," he said. "That's all right, Howie," said Mrs. Quimby. "Miss Benny doesn't expect you to take something every day." "I want to take something," said Howie. "My goodness, Howie," said his mother. "What if 29 children each brought something? Then Miss Benny wouldn't have time to teach you anything," because they'd be doing show and tell all day, right? She's taking something, Howie pointed to Ramona. There was something familiar about the way Howie was behaving. Ramona pulled at her mother's hand. "Come on, Mama." "Ramona, I think it would be nice if you ran in the house and found something to lend Howie to take to school," said Mrs. Quimby. So the Kemps had come from a little further away, so they were picking up Ramona on the way to school. So they couldn't go back to Howie's house. So that's why they were saying, "Ramona, go in and get something from your house." Ramona did not think that idea was nice at all, but she recognized that lending Howie something might be faster than arguing with him. She ran into the house, where she snatched up the first thing she saw, a stuffed rabbit that had already been given hard wear before the cat had adopted it as sort of a practice gopher. So the stuffed rabbit was already kind of worn out, and then the cat started using it for a toy. So we know what it probably looks like. The cat liked to chew the rabbit's tail, carry it around in his mouth, or lie down and kick it with its hind feet and the sharp claws. When Rebecca thrust the rabbit into Howie's hand, Mrs. Kemp said, "Thank you. Say thank you, Howie." "It's just an old beat-up bunny," said Howie scornfully. When his mother wasn't looking, he handed the rabbit to Willa Jean, who dropped her apple juice, took the rabbit, and began to chew its tail. "Just like our cat," thought Ramona as the group approached towards school. So she's thinking Willa Jean was acting just like the cat, chewing on the tail. Don't forget Ramona's bunny, said Mrs. Kemp when they reached the kindergarten playground. I don't want her, old bunny, said Howie. Now, Howie, said his mother, Ramona was kind enough to share her bunny, so you be nice to Mrs. Quimby, she said, as if Howie could not hear her. Howie needs to learn manners. All right, we'll stop right there, boys and girls.